Hey, what is up everyone? It's Kyle here, bringing you another 2015 NFL mock draft. I know I haven't put out a video in a while, but I do appreciate the recent support. I've gotten a lot more support on my videos, especially the last one. Definitely appreciate that. Continue with that. And obviously, we're starting to get closer to the draft. I know it's still months away, but this is Senior Bowl week, whatnot. Obviously, I need to get my act together. I'm going to start to put out mock drafts on a weekly basis. Hopefully, I actually do that. I should be doing that. If the support continues to be the same that it has been, it'll obviously continue me to make more videos. But I'm back here with another mock draft, and there is some changes via the last one. Not all the exact same things. Some new guys added, some guys taken away, guys in a different spot. But again, just to go over the rules of my mock draft, it is my mock draft. It is what I would do at each pick. I'm not too much into the predicting the pick type drafts, but if you do want that to know that, leave a comment down below. I will let you know if you say your team. I'll let you know who I think. I'll give you probably 3 guys who I think is a genuine possibility that your team will take, or if you want to know more about the player that I said your team would take, or I personally would pick for your team. If you want to know more about him, make a comment down below, and I will start a series pretty soon. I think that I'll be able to have it so where I get to probably the top 50 if I do one every other day, I think. Oh, the prospect, in-depth view of the prospect. I was going to do it last year, and I didn't do it last year, but I'm going to do it this year for sure. So keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. Subscribe if you want to know when that's going to come out and get notifications for it. But now, for the 2015 NFL mock draft, this I think is my 3rd on my account. I've made more than 3. Not all of them go into videos, but this one is, I think it's a pretty good one. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, now we're at the number 1 overall pick, and this is the same trend that's probably going to happen for a while now. Let's go. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going to have a trade at the 1st overall pick if I'm general manager, and that is to the St. Louis Rams. And the Rams are going to give up their 2015 first round pick and their 2016 second round and first round pick for the rights to select Jameis Winston, the quarterback out of Florida State. Obviously, I'm a Florida State fan. We know this already. We've been over this multiple times, but undoubtedly, Jameis Winston is the most NFL-ready quarterback in this draft class, without a doubt. Marcus Mariota might have the more athletic talent towards him and probably may come off as the safer pick, but in my personal opinion, I think he's more of a risk than Jameis Winston is, considering the fact that he has never played a single snap at a pro-style offense, and in the NFL, there's only a handful of teams that don't run a pro-style offense, and when it comes down to it, you want a quarterback that's going to fit your team, and Marcus Mariota is only going to fit into a certain number of teams. The first one that jumps off of my mind is the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll see how that might pan out later on in this draft, but Jameis Winston is the most NFL-ready quarterback, like I've said, and the St. Louis Rams are about a quarterback away from being a legitimate contender in the NFC West. So hope that's the right division. I'm always wrong with divisions. I don't understand why. But at Florida State, he was 29-1 in 2 seasons. That is absolutely ridiculous. One of the best college quarterbacks in terms of record of all time. People say he has off-the-field problems. He's just young, and he's kind of an idiot, if to be simple. He's an idiot. He can do some stupid things and jump on tables and do all this random things, but when it comes to game time, he's probably the most focused quarterback that I have ever personally watched. I kind of think that the distractions help him for the most part because he uses football as his escape, and it takes a lot of time to watch him to really see what you're going to gain from him as your franchise quarterback. It really takes a lot to look into, but I know the interceptions are kind of a little bit of a red flag there, but you can't just look at stats when it comes to quarterbacks that you're looking to draft. This draft class is going to shoot Jameis Winston up the board. Personally, where I think I'd be comfortable taking him would probably be around the 10 to 15 range, but with the serious lack of depth in this draft class, it's literally Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. Then you probably won't see a quarterback until the 3rd round, in my personal opinion. So with that being said, you're going to have to make a move and go get him because someone else will if you don't. And I think that he's worth every bit of a number 1 overall pick in this draft. Not necessarily last year's draft or years before that, because there was some depth, not as much top end talent, but some depth in terms of quarterback position. But this draft, without a doubt, you have to go out and get him if you're the St. Louis Rams. Okay, I'm gonna move right on here to the number 2 overall pick, and that's the Tennessee Titans, and I have them taking Leonard Williams, the defensive end out of USC. It's going to flip-flop between Randy Gregory and Leonard Williams, and that's going to affect the rest of this draft, because that's going to affect who the Jaguars take, who will affect, the rest of whatever it takes. But personally, I think Leonard Williams paired with Jarrell Casey would make the best 3-4 defensive end tandem in the NFL, without a doubt. And I think for the Tennessee Titans, you need to find guys that are versatile, that are polished, and that can play every down in the NFL, because right now their defense is horrendous, especially that defensive front seven is absolutely horrendous. And Randy Gregory has a lot of upside, but I don't think he's as ready as Leonard Williams. And I know for a fact that he's not as NFL ready as Leonard Williams, and Leonard Williams has more versatility than him because he actually has played defensive end, defensive tackle, and any interior position. So they have a hybrid multiple front scheme with Ken Wisenhunt. It's really a 3-4 base, but it's a hybrid at some times, and that'll force Leonard Williams to move along the defensive line, which actually I personally think he's more comfortable doing than sitting in one position. I feel like that versatility is something that he feels comfortable doing, and I think that he's going to get a little bit tired down if he's doing the one thing every single game. I think he's better off in a scheme that allows him to move around. And again, pressure via the inside or via the outside to the quarterback is an extremely important thing, especially when you're working with a mediocre secondary, which the Tennessee Titans have. They have an awful defense. They really do. One of the best, I'm sorry, not one of the best, one of the worst in the NFL. And with the quarterback position becoming such a superstar type thing, and wide receivers not really being allowed to touch, you have to limit the amount of time the quarterback has to make a decision. And by building on the front seven, building with pass rushers and stuff like that, linebackers, you help limit the quarterback's time to make a decision and therefore force errors. And so I think this is a great pick at number 2 for the Tennessee Titans to take Leonard Williams. Okay, moving on to number 3 overall pick, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I have them selecting Shane Ray, the defensive end out of Missouri. Okay, personally, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are a defense on the rise. I really do. I think that they are a team on the rise. I don't think they're next year away like some may do, but I think they're the end of next year, early 2 years from now. I think they're going to become a good team, a really good team. But they do lack edge rush. They don't really lack interior rush too much, with Derek Marks having the season that he did have last year. But they do lack edge rush, and edge rush is a premier position in the NFL. And Shane Ray is the most polished edge rusher in this draft. Now, he does not have the most upside. The most upside is Randy Gregory. But Randy Gregory is going to take a project. He's going to take a little while, and he's a little bit not as heavy. He's not as heavy as Shane Ray. And Shane Ray is a guy who's going to get pressure on the quarterback every single down. Now, he might not get to the quarterback every single down. If he could, that would be absolutely amazing. I've never seen a guy who can get to the quarterback every single time. But he gets close, and he's going to get hurries on almost every single down. And that's really what they need, because their secondary is not good. Their defensive front seven it's coming along. It's getting there. It's pretty good. Telvin Smith out of Florida State last year. Derek Marks came out of nowhere. Was actually really good for them last year. And Paul Posluszny is still a above-average middle linebacker in the NFL. And they have Geno Hayes, I believe, at the left outside linebacker position. So they have some building blocks there on that defense. But with the secondary, it's Jonathan Cyprien, and I don't know who else, pretty much. I know who else is on the team, but I just don't know who else I could see a bright spot being there. But Shane Ray adds even more potential to the front seven and helps that secondary maybe look better than they actually are. Alright, let's move on to number 4 selection in the 2015 NFL Draft, and that belongs to the Oakland Raiders. And if I'm the general manager of the Oakland Raiders, I'm going to trade this pick, and the team that I'm going to look for is not too far down behind me, but they are down behind me, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. And they're going to give us the 2015 first-round pick and the 2016 second-round pick and 2016 third-round pick for the rights to draft Randy Gregory, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Nebraska. Probably has the most upside in this draft, but then again, has probably the least amount of production in the top end of this draft class. He is a long longer, like lankier version of a Khalil Mack slash Jadeveon Clowney, but he's not nearly as polished as either of them. And Clowney really wasn't that polished, according to me. But the thing with Randy Gregory is he has a ton of upside, and he does fit this scheme that we saw trying to be built in Atlanta. Atlanta is the worst defense in the league. Tennessee is pretty close behind, but Atlanta, statistically wise, was the worst last year. And they need to get some sort of pass rush, an absolutely horrendous pass rush. I honestly don't know how many sacks they had last year, but I'd be surprised if it was more than 10. I really would. They got zero pressure on the quarterback in any game, and while they do have a young cornerback core that is actually has some upside, their defensive front is so bad that it doesn't matter. That they'll have plenty of time. Any quarterback will have plenty of time to sit there and pick apart this defense, and the interior of this defense also isn't that good. So Leonard Williams is going to be at a premium here, and while the Tennessee Titans, I have them getting it, Randy Gregory I see as becoming a potential elite pass rusher. Not next season. Next season he might be a 5-sack guy, but then season after that he might be a 15-sack guy. So it's like, what do you got to do here? This team needs so much on the defensive side of the ball in terms of pass rushers that I say just get the guy with the most potential there, and they're not one pass rusher away. They're 2 pass rushers away, 2 defensive tackles away from being a good, front 7. So I think that's an easy pick for them, and I think they do have to move up and get him because they can't risk another team taking all the elite edge rushers in this draft. But let's move on to number 5 overall pick, and that belongs to the Washington Redskins for the first time in a while since the RG3 debacle. Have a first-round pick, and what are they going to do? They're going to trade it. They're going to trade it to the New Orleans Saints for the Saints' 2015 first and the 2016 first. I think they need to acquire as many draft picks as possible, and I think it's a good shot for them to move down. They really do need to move down. A lot of teams at the top half of this draft need to move down and gain some more picks because there's teams that are lower than them that can go up and grab a guy that has a value at a certain pick. For example, at 5, a team down at 13 move up and get a guy because they have top 5 needs, but maybe not necessarily the prospects match up. And that's how trades work. I don't even need to explain it. You know how trades work. But anyway, they're going to trade it to New Orleans Saints, and with number 5 overall pick, the New Orleans Saints selected Dante Fowler, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Florida, quickly becoming one of the best pass rushers in this draft class. When you pick apart his tape, it's really nothing that you can see that makes you not want to pick him. There's just more potential in certain guys like Randy Gregory, and Shane Ray has more production than him, so that's why you see those guys consistently being mocked ahead of him. But I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the draft and by the beginning of the draft actually happening, and the draft process being the draft happening, Dante Fowler could be rated ahead of both of them. This guy's a big guy with a ton of athleticism, can play all over the defensive front, the edge position. He can play outside linebacker and he can play defensive end, and really he could be a 3-4 defensive end, a 3 technique and a 3-4. I could see him doing that as well. He has the size, but he also has the arm length and athleticism to play each of those positions. Fowler is a force on the defensive front. It really is, and he makes a lot of plays, and he made that Florida defense a lot better than it really was. I promise you that. And the New Orleans Saints, they have an issue here. They have Junior Gillette, but they don't have any other edge rusher, and that defense was so bad last year because it relies on pass rush. They don't have the corners to lock up man-to-man. They don't have the defensive line to stop everybody running the ball up the middle on them, but they do have the pass rushing technician in Rob Ryan with that 3-4 attacking 3-4 scheme there in New Orleans, and they only have one guy. They need 2, and Junior Gillette isn't necessarily the best guy to have as your 1 either because he does have some off-the-field issues, but I think they definitely need to move up and get Dante Fowler. Cannot risk a wait. Cannot risk a Vic Beasley who doesn't have the size that Dante Fowler does or the length, even though he does have talent. You have to go up and get him. You have no choice. Go up and get him. Someone else is going to take him in the top 5. I promise you that. Alright, let's move on to the number 6 overall pick, and that belongs to the New York Jets. And personally, I have them taking not Marcus Mariota, Andres Pete, the offensive tackle out of Stanford. Everyone has him taking Marcus Mariota. Everyone has Marcus Mariota going way before that he should be. But plain and simple, Marcus Mariota has nothing to show me as, an NFL GM. He's nothing really to show me that says he's going to be the franchise quarterback. He has short to intermediate routes and an up-tempo system that makes his numbers look better than he actually is. So while I don't know if he's going to be a great quarterback, the fact that I don't know if he is going to be a great quarterback, and I don't know if he's going to be a bad quarterback because I have nothing to go on, makes him not able to be a top 10 pick. But on just Pete here, listen, you have to have a formidable offensive line to warrant a franchise quarterback, especially a young quarterback in terms of development. If Geno Smith played really good in college, what you got in college was a guy who's projected to possibly go number 1 overall. Realistically, did anyone actually think that was going to happen? No. But was he projected there by some idiot, people on media? Yes, he was, plenty of times. And they got him in the 2nd round. The Jets they have a good enough receiving corps, so they need to build that offensive line to give him the best opportunity to succeed before moving on. That's the issue with the New York Jets. They don't give their quarterbacks the best opportunity to succeed before they move on, and the media just attacks them over and over and over again, and they haven't had the right guys in management to be able to look past the media for a little bit, realize all they want to do is actually win, struggle for a couple years, and then possibly get a good team because you built a good team, and maybe you don't have your quarterback. Maybe Geno Smith isn't a franchise quarterback, but at least you built your offensive line up, and at least your team is good enough now to sustain a guy who could be your franchise quarterback. You don't know until you try, and the Jets don't ever try. They get 2 years with the guy, and then that's the end of it, because he doesn't perform to Peyton Manning's standards, or Tom Brady's standards, or Andrew Luck's standards. If he doesn't perform to those standards in New York, pretty much you're terrible in New York. I know, I'm from New York. It's either you're great or you're ass. It's never you're okay. It doesn't work that way, especially from the quarterback position. It's under a lot of pressure here, and I think personally, Jameis Winston would be able to handle this type of team, but I think you still need to get an offensive line. Young quarterbacks take a lot longer to go through their progressions and make decisions smartly than a veteran, because they don't know exactly what they're doing. And especially with a guy like Marcus Mariota, who would be making a transition to a pro-style offense. If indeed the Jets do take Mariota, I think it'll be a huge mistake for them unless they're able to bolster this offensive line either in free agency or later in this draft and get some guys who can really play. Otherwise, you can't take a quarterback here. But on just Pete, let's talk about the guy we're actually going to draft for the New York Jets. And this guy is a technician, had a streak of nasty to him. Can see him playing either left or right tackle. I really do like him as a left tackle. Personally, I think that he is probably the most consistent pick in this draft. A guy that I'm not gonna say a safe pick, because every time I say a safe pick with an offensive tackle, he's never a safe pick. But I say Andres Pete is a guy who's gonna, wherever you're gonna put him, left or right tackle, is going to be good enough for a franchise quarterback, and he has potential to grow. T.J. Clemmings, the offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, I personally think has the most upside in this draft as an offensive tackle, for sure, and definitely going to rise the most, and probably is the best offensive tackle, but I don't think for the Jets. Another guy who hasn't actually played left tackle, and they don't have a left tackle, is really a good pick. But Andres Pete, I think he still, right now, is the number 1 tackle, but it's really close with T.J. Clemmings. I think T.J. Clemmings might be slightly gaining on him. But let's move on to the number 7 overall pick, and that is the Chicago Bears. And I have them taking Danny Shelton, the defensive tackle out of Washington, the biggest guy in this draft class. I think he's about 6'7", 336 pounds. I could be off. I think he's more than that, to be honest with you. Absolute man with a man. This team needs to get bigger. They need to get better, and they need to get bigger on the defensive front. Really, the Chicago Bears have been known for the longest time throughout their history for great defense, and what are they trying to be known for right now is offense. And oh lord, okay, my computer decided to shut off in the middle of that, so I'm back. But the Chicago Bears have been known throughout their history, defensive minded team. Lately, they're trying to be this pass heavy offensive team, and it's just simply not working because they've completely neglected the defense side of the ball since Brian Urlacher has left. I think they made a mistake last year by not drafting a middle linebacker. I think TJ Chris Borland would have been a great pick for them. I had him consistently taking him in the second round, but they didn't do it. It was dumb. And now they need to get bigger on the defense side of the ball. They really do. And Danny Shelton is the definition of bigger in this draft class. He's an absolute mammoth of a man. Really, really athletic for his size as well, and really could play defensive end, surprisingly, at his size. He's not going to play defensive end at his size because he is 350 pounds or whatever he is. I think he's like 360. I said 330. I think he's 360, to be honest with you. Almost 400 pounds. That's a big guy. He reminds me of Ndamukong Suh a lot. That's the kind of player he is. If you want to think about the pass rush size, and strength in the NFL comparison, Danny Shelton, you think of Ndamukong Suh, probably the most feared guy in the NFL is not Ndamukong Suh, and I think that this is exactly what the Chicago Bears need. And if Ndamukong Suh somehow hits free agency, Chicago Bears, give him as much money as you can. That is exactly what you need on this team. But if you don't get him, take Danny Shelton, the defensive tackle out of Washington. Okay, we're going to move on. It's the number 8 pick, and that now belongs to the Oakland Raiders because of the trade with the Atlanta Falcons. And I have them taking Kevin White, the wide receiver out of West Virginia. This is kind of a shocker to a lot of people because everyone has Amari Cooper going wherever the hell they have him, number 1, number 5, number 8, number 10. But Amari Cooper, while he is the number 1 receiver in the NFL, he's a low-end number 1. I think he's a really, really high-end number 2. That's what I would really like to see him as a high-end number 2 to a team that already has a star number 1 and wants to, bolster the guy to go opposite him and try to, make him. He'll get a lot of stats, kind of like, for example, a Golden Tate in Detroit. That's the example, like, just that kind of a role. He's nothing like Golden Tate in terms of a player, but like that kind of a role is what I would see Amari Cooper being in. But Kevin White, I think he's going to be really good for this team. I think he's going to be definitely a Raiders pick, but a good Raiders pick. I think that the combination of size, speed, and route running really dominates in the NFL. It definitely does. Size, I think, is my biggest one. I like size, especially with a young receiver, but the guy who can run routes is also very important for a young receiver. You saw a lot this year with the explosion of Odell Beckham Jr. He's an excellent route runner. Of course, he makes these spectacular catches, and he is in the New York media, so he gets a lot of exposure, but route running is really an important thing. Now, he's not as dominant as a Devontae Parker is, but he is more explosive than both Devontae Parker and Amari Cooper, and he has very good size. Good hands. I think he's going to be one of these guys who's a consistent receiver. He's going to be a number 1 receiver on the Oakland Raiders, obviously, but I think that he can be their number 1 for a while, and then maybe move into the number 2 role as he's older, like 30s, like plus 30s. I think he's going to be a very good number 1, a very consistent guy. Might not be the guy who's going to be on SportsCenter every single day, but he's going to be a consistent receiver, and that is what the Raiders need. Consistency is what this team needs for sure. Okay, let's move on to number 9 overall pick, and I have the New York Giants selecting Vic Beasley, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Clemson. I like Vic Beasley a lot. He doesn't have the size. He really doesn't. He does not have the size to be as dominant as people want him to be, but I think he still can be. Even though he has small size, I still think he could be a dominant defensive end. He's very, very fast, very explosive, and the Giants need pass rush from anywhere. I think that with how depleted this defense is, I say you just get the best pass rusher available, and it's Vic Beasley at the current moment. I would personally like to see them re-sign Jason Pierre-Paul, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. So it's either Bud Dupree or Vic Beasley, and the other one will fall a lot. Personally, I have Vic Beasley here because he has a high motor. He's a really high motor player, and he does not give up on any single play. So I think that he's going to be coachable and be a very good player for them. And I think he could possibly play just straight outside linebacker position with a lot of blitzing ability if they so want that to happen. But a quick thing here, this probably will change. The next mock draft, just going to give you a heads up on this, probably will change. I think offensive lineman is probably where they need to go. I think they need to trade down, but I was trying to see a place where I could trade down that Giants pick, but I just didn't see another team moving up that many picks to go out and get there, because that's a tricky spot. So I think they're going to have to probably reach on either, they're not, TJ Clemens wouldn't be too much of a reach, but I don't know, we'll see. It's either going to be TJ Clemens or Brandon Sheriff. I'll probably have them change that up in the next mock draft, but for now, Vic Beasley is the pick. Alright, rounding off the top 10, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're going to select TJ Clemens, the offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. They're going to take him no matter where they are. If they're smart, they'll trade down and take him and not take a quarterback at the top 10. Listen, Mike Glennon has a ton of potential. He really does. I think that they made a mistake benching him later in the year for Josh McCown, a lost season. I don't know what the hell they're doing. The Buccaneers very much confused me. For the last 2 years, I thought the Buccaneers were going to be a good team. They've made some good free agent signings. They have some pieces, and then they get rid of their offensive line consistently. 2 years ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a very good offensive line. When Doug Martin ran all over everybody, their offensive line was pretty good. And then I don't know what they did. They got rid of half of it. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't understand what they were doing there. But sometimes teams are run terribly. And regardless of how terribly this team has been run, they've kept their head coach. And Mike Glennon, you need to try to get him to be your franchise quarterback. I honestly think that he could do it. So I think get an offensive line and get your running game back. That's also another important thing with this offensive line pick. Their running game was one of the biggest things that they had with Doug Martin. And they lost it because they lost their offensive line. With TJ Clemens, they're going to get this back, a guy who has played right tackle in college, but has left tackle abilities for sure. Great feet, long arms, excellent player, athletic, can even kick it to guard if needs so, can play all over that offensive line. Versatile player, exactly what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need. Alright, let's move on to number 11 pick in the draft, and that belongs to the Minnesota Vikings. And with number 11 overall pick, I have them taking Amari Cooper, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Listen, I don't care what you say. The Minnesota Vikings need a wide receiver, without a doubt. You can't bank on this Chris Carter's son kid. I don't even know if he's going to go there. He probably is going to go to Carolina, to be completely honest with you. And you have a young quarterback who needs development. Brandon Sheriff would possibly be an option here, or TJ Clemens, or another one of the offensive tackles. But I really think that you get a wide receiver, and you still have Greg Jennings. You still have Greg Jennings, and he's a veteran receiver. He can still teach a young guy like Amari Cooper, who is very good in college. I think that he's a consistent guy. Definitely will help the development of Teddy Bridgewater. I think Cordell Patterson needs to be featured more. I think that it really, really hurts a young player when you just don't play them. You gotta play these guys. Sometimes, even though you don't want to, you gotta play your first round draft pick from a couple of years back, and you gotta get him developed. Everyone knew coming out, Cordell Patterson was raw, and he was gonna take a few years to develop. No one thought that he was gonna come out year one and be a dominant wide receiver. No one thought that. At least I don't think so. Everyone knew he was a developmental prospect. And with developmental prospects, playing them helps them. And you gotta play him. He's a big guy with a ton of talent. You gotta play him. They don't use him. They really just frankly don't use him. It's like Tavon Austin. They don't use Tavon Austin in St. Louis ever. And they don't use Cordell Patterson. This guy needs to get work in the route running. But he still can catch the ball, and he still has a ton of after catch thing. He's explosive. Get him involved and get Amari Cooper, a consistent guy in there. And I think that'll help Teddy Bridgewater's development. They were just unlucky to be in the spot that they are now. Towards the later half of the year, once they started putting Teddy Bridgewater in, they were a much better team. And they'll get Adrian Peterson back. I don't care what you say, Adrian Peterson's going to come back. Bring Adrian Peterson back or you're an idiot. Plain and simple. You're an absolute moron if you don't want Adrian Peterson anymore. You're an idiot. Keep Adrian Peterson back, you get him back, and then you get Amari Cooper in the draft, you get Teddy Bridgewater for a full season. Much better team. Defense is pretty good. It's a very good defense. It's not the best in the league, it's not the worst. But it's not just middle of the road. It's trending upwards. They had Everson Griffin get some production last year. Their cornerbacks are pretty good. Captain Munderland and Xavier Rhodes. Harrison Smith back there is pretty good. I think they need help in the linebacking position. Besides Anthony Barton, talk about the middle linebacker, inside linebacker position. They also have Sharif Floyd, who is a rookie out of, not a rookie, he's about a second-year guy now out of Florida. And definitely got a good defense. Need to keep building on that offense, though. And Amari Cooper is what you gotta do. What you gonna do right here. All right, moving on to number 12 overall pick. And that is the Cleveland Browns' first pick in this year's first round of the 2015 draft. And I have them taking Devontae Parker, the wide receiver out of Louisville. Big receiver, a lot of production at Louisville, an excellent guy that you want on your team. You need a guy opposite Josh Gordon, if indeed they even have Josh Gordon there. You just can't count on him as an NFL receiver right now because the team keeps suspending him, the league keeps suspending him. He has a ton of talent. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the league when on the field. It's just that he's never on the field. And even when he is on the field, they still need a guy opposite him. And that guy's Devontae Parker, a 6'4", 225. That doesn't sound right, but I think that is his actual weight. 225-pound wide receiver out of Louisville with a ton of production, and Johnny Manziel absolutely loves big targets. Manziel is your quarterback of the future. Get over it. They drafted in the first round. They're not drafting a quarterback this year. Get over it. I don't know who thinks that's going to happen, but you're wrong. Plain and simple, you're wrong. They're not going to draft a quarterback in the first round. They're not. You don't move on a quarterback after the first year. You just don't. It doesn't work that way. But Devontae Parker out of Louisville actually probably is my favorite wide receiver in this draft so far because, I do like the big receivers. I think that especially with a young quarterback in Johnny Manziel, a guy who scrambles around and doesn't need necessarily the most crisp route runner, but he does need a big guy who can make big catches. Devontae Parker is that guy. I'm going to move on right now to the 13th overall pick. And that belongs to the Washington Redskins. And I have them taking Brandon Sheriff, the offensive guard out of Iowa. And you notice I said offensive guard. Sheriff is not a tackle in the NFL. And if you see a mock draft, where you have Brandon Sheriff going in the top 5, top 10, you should probably click off that draft. Because I have him at 13, and that's an absolute reach. It really is. And the reason why it's a reach is because he is a guard. He's probably the best guard that we've seen in a while, and the Chance Warmack went number 2. I don't know what the hell was that about. And what was his name? His last name is Cooper. His first name I do not know. But he went 3rd overall 2 years ago. I don't know what that. And I agreed with them making that pick at that time. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know. But 13 for one of the better guard prospects we've seen in a while, but he is a guard. Personally, it reminds me a lot of Marshall Yonda, but he does have a streak of nasty to him, which you always like from an offensive lineman. It's that will to compete, not going to give up on the play. He's not going to let someone get past him. He's going to go through them. You like the attitude from the offensive line position because offensive line, defensive line, you want them have this attitude because they're not going to let someone else beat them because it's a one-on-one matchup, one of the few positions. That was a dead wrong statement. It's probably the most hands-on, one-to-one combat in football. A lot of things are man-to-man. Every guy's got to do their individual job, but a lot of times it depends on others to also help them out. Offensive line and defensive line, it's you against the other guy getting to the quarterback, or you blocking the guy from getting to your quarterback. It depends on you and you only. So, a streak of nasty to you and that attitude to compete, which is shown from Brandon Sheriff, is a very important thing in an offensive line. And let's just talk about the state of the Washington Redskins for a minute. They're in a bit of an issue. I mean by a bit, a lot of an issue. But look, they have more talent on the offensive side of the ball. They have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, for the record, than on the defensive side of the ball. And I have a franchise left tackle. That's important. So I say build around, get some guards in there. T.J. Clemens out of Pittsburgh. Now, let me just make a quick point here. Of course, it's going to be way off topic, but this mock was made about, I think it was 4 days ago, and I watched a lot of tapes since then. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. One, I messed up on the Kevin White. I read my notes wrong. I have notes on here. You could not see anything. I don't know why I showed you that. I have my notes here, is why I always look down to the left-hand side, and I just completely read it wrong. He's not a crisp route runner yet, but he has potential to be explosive wide receiver. Yes, saying that now. I don't know what the hell I was thinking at that point. I read the wrong one. I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, this mock draft was made a little while back, so there's going to be some updates in the next picks, which is why I'm going to try to do these more frequently, because I don't like the layover I have from when I actually make them until when I actually do the video. It bothers me a little bit. But anyway, screw it. I'm talking about the Washington Redskins, state of Washington Redskins. Let's get back to the topic. I have idiot sham way off all the time, but it doesn't matter. They have more talent on the offensive side of the ball. RG3, Alfred Morris, Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Reed, and their franchise left tackle and Trent Williams. That's usually a good offense. But the rest of their offensive line is horrible. They really need to overhaul it. TJ Clemmings, out of Pittsburgh, might go 5. I really do think he might go 5. He might even go 1. He's probably right now my highest rising guy. Now, every time I do a mock draft, usually I have one guy who's going way up, way up, way up every single time that I, kind of had a thoughts about. And I'm going to get to touch on a few of them later in this draft. But TJ Clemmings definitely is one guy shooting way up, along with Dante Fowler and Kevin White. Those are guys that I've gone through so far. I'm not going to mention the ones going through later. You're going to have to watch the video to find out that. But again, offensive line is a very important thing. You could see, you saw it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're seeing with the Washington Redskins how you can take a explosive offense and completely destroy it without that offensive line. The offensive line and the defensive line are the backbones, are the brain, are the nucleus of teams. You build your team through that offensive line and that defensive line, and I am a strong believer of that, and that is my philosophy. I know it works. I've seen it in the NFL. Defensive lines and offensive lines are where you spend your money, where you spend your picks, because it's all about time in the NFL. It's all about a split instinct. You got just a little bit more time to think. You got a little bit more time to look back in your reads and get your guys to get open. Just a fraction more time, maybe a second more or a half a second more for your guy to get open and make that catch. So many times in the NFL, you've seen the ball thrown. For example, I'm trying to catch the ball. My arm's not fully extended, but yeah, trying to. And I'm going to put it like here so I can show you. And the ball, I was my hands here, and the ball goes right over here somewhere. I'm trying to catch the ball here. Okay, this is really bad. And it goes, for fuck's sake. There, yeah, I'm reaching to try to, yeah, that was the worst. Oh, and I hit the mic. That was the worst nod ever. But so many times you see guys reaching for the ball, and it's like right past his fingertip. You think if he had a half a second longer to explode out of his break, or the quarterback had a half a second longer to wait and throw that pass, that half second is the difference between a good offensive line and a bad one. It's a difference between a good team and a bad team. Is that you look at the best teams in the NFL right now. I guarantee you'll see that. Okay, look at the Super Bowl. Look at the two guys in the Super Bowl right now, the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks, and look at the lines. Look at the New England Patriots offensive line, one of the best in the league. Look at the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. To be honest with you, not one of the best in the league, but not the worst. They definitely have a lot of good pieces on there for sure. Got 4 out of 5 spots, pretty solid, and they got the best power back in the league in Marshawn Lynch. Look at the defensive lines. Great defensive line for the New England Patriots. Look at the Seattle Seahawks defensive line. Absolutely amazing defensive line. I'm telling you right now, that's where teams are built. The Patriots and Seahawks, not the prime example, but it shows those teams have good lines. And so what I always get, obviously, the secondaries of both those teams are also really big reasons why, but those are the 2 teams in the league, to be honest with you, those are the 2 teams in the league where I can say their secondary really makes their defense, not the front as much, but it definitely is there, very good. But that's important. no way should this offensive have struggled as much as it did last year. And Brandon Sheriff needs to solidify this offensive line. I really strongly think he's a guard, but I would suggest trying him at right tackle first. Actually, I take that back. Play him a guard. You got Morgan Moses. I know you drafted him last year out of Virginia. Slide him in at right. I think he'll be okay at right for a little bit. And put Sheriff in at guard. Enough about that pick. Enough about me ranting. Let's move on to another one of the Miami Dolphins just picking a guy with personality issues. At 14 overall pick out of the Miami Dolphins, selecting Marcus Peters, a cornerback out of Washington. Consistently, I do these mock drafts, and every time I put Marcus Peters going to Dolphins, I think to myself, what is a more dysfunctional locker room than them or the 49ers, which is always the two teams that I have him going to. Plain and simple, the cornerback class isn't very good. It's not very deep, and it isn't very good. And cornerbacks are at absolute premium in this league, and it's going to force the Miami Dolphins to take a risk on a guy that has issues. He got dismissed from Washington, but he definitely, without a doubt, is the best cornerback in this league. Not in this league. Wow, that's bad. In this draft class. I'm telling you right now, he stayed through everything, no personality issues whatsoever, top five pick, without a question. Easily a top 5 pick. What else is there to say about Marcus Peters? He has the potential to be a shutdown quarter to the next level. And while the secondary was good for the Miami Dolphins last year, they are older. Cortland Finnegan and Brent Grimes both are over 30 years old, and both are on the downswing. Brent Grimes is a little bit more on the upswing than Cortland Finnegan. Cortland Finnegan could even retire. So I think adding another corner to keep that defense, they keep the strengths of the defense there is important. Every single offseason, I'm just going to talk about this for a minute. Obviously, I'm going to talk about everything that possibly pops into my mind. Every team in the offseason wants to build. They want to get better for next year. But sometimes you have to sit back and realize we have to focus more on keeping what we had going rather than making it so good. Sometimes there's times where you can't make your team as good as you want it to be. You can't make it great because free agent comes along, guys don't necessarily sign with you that you want, guys get older, guys retire. Sometimes you have to replenish positions that were at strong as points for you last year, but you have to keep that going, which is the important part of the offseason in the NFL. Is you have to sustain what was working for you. If you have a good team, sustain what's working for you, try to build off of it. And that's what the Miami Dolphins are forced to do here. And unfortunately, as a general manager, you don't want to have to spend a first-round draft pick on a position that was at a strength for you last year. But sometimes you have to do it, and you have no choice. Let's move on to a very intriguing pick for me, a guy that's really rised up my boards and probably rised up a lot of guys' boards. And at number 15 overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers should select Eric Armstead, the defensive end out of Oregon. It's A-R-I-K. I think it's Eric. It sounds like it should be Eric, but I could be wrong. Well, let's take a look right here. This guy is Calais Campbell. He is huge. He is powerful. He is explosive. He is versatile. He's athletic. He's a very, very good 3-4 defensive end. He is not a 4-3 defensive end. No way. He is a 3-4 defensive end. Justin Smith retired. You're going to need to put that guy right there. Again, unfortunately, another team that I was very confused this year why they didn't do as they did as bad as they did. I'm trying to think. The locker room dysfunction probably has something to do with it. The decline of Vernon Davis. Kaepernick didn't play as amazingly as he had, which I kind of expected him not to play as great. Wide receiver core is getting a little older. You can work on that in a little bit, maybe in the second and third round, work on the wide receivers and probably in free agency. But I think this team will bounce back. I really do. I think they'll bounce back next year. And again, you just get younger on the defensive line because you lost Ray McDonald because he's an asshole. You lost Justin Smith because he retired. Replaced that 3-4 defensive end position with Eric Armstrong, an explosive guy out of Oregon. Again, you're going to see rise up a lot of people's draft boards, and obviously mine, he rose up pretty quickly. So, Yeah, definitely a huge guy. When you look at the St. Louis Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals defense, one of the big pieces that sticks out immediately is Calais Campbell. I'm telling you right now, Eric Armstrong will stick out on this team's defense. All right, let's move on to number 16 overall pick, and I have the Houston Texans selecting Trey Waynes, the cornerback out of Michigan State. He not necessarily is the best off coverage kind of guy, but he does excel with press coverage. This cornerback class is weak. It is. And Houston Texans need depth at the cornerback position. They need a quarterback. Listen, I know Marcus Mariota in my draft here is still available at 16. I understand that. I understand you all don't like that. I understand everyone in the comments is going to tell me that you're an idiot. Well, just you know what? This is why you're not a general manager. Well, I'm not a general manager either, but this is why you're definitely not one, because you got to think about it logically here. Now, the Texans can go in a number of different ways. Mariota would seem to be the obvious pick here. He's still available at 16 and you need a quarterback, but Bill O'Brien does not like the project at quarterback. That's why last year I probably would have taken Manziel at number 1. I like Manziel still, just because he's got that wow factor to me that a number 1 overall pick should have. But in my head, if I honestly knew that if the Texans were to take a quarterback last year, it would have been Blake Bortles. It wouldn't have been Manziel. I knew that for a fact that it wouldn't have been Manziel, but that's who I wanted it to be at some point. But Bortles was who I thought they should have taken. Now, obviously, they didn't. They took Jadeveon Clowney. But here, I just talked about that for a minute just to explain why Marcus Mariota won't be picked by the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien doesn't like project quarterbacks. He likes pro-style quarterbacks. But anyway, Trey Waynes, second best corner in this draft class. Might go ahead of Marcus Peters because he doesn't have personality issues. Got a good amount of potential. His cornerback secondary of the Houston Texans needs to get better. That front is pretty good. That defense is going to be the strong set of this team. And with Jonathan Joseph back there, he is getting older, and Kareem Jackson is a average corner in the NFL. They need to get a guy who can become a really good cornerback, and the depth of this cornerback thing, tangent, whatever the hell you want to call it, in Houston, and the sheer dominance of that defensive front with J.J. Watt is going to allow good development for Trey Waynes. Just makes it a smart pick to take a cornerback here. He doesn't necessarily have to come in and be their number 1 corner or the number 2 cornerback, but he can come in as their number 3, and he can learn, and he can have time to develop, and he will become a good player if he goes to the Texans. This is an ideal situation. You're going to see a need in a couple of years for a cornerback. It's not a huge need right now, but you're going to see a need in a couple of years at a position that you can't come in first year. Well, you can, but it's very, very difficult. It's the same thing on offensive line. Can't come in first year and just absolutely down. Well, offensive line, I'm sorry, let me reiterate. Offensive tackle. You can't come in first year. You can't usually dominate first year because you got to get used to the competition that you're facing. Oh my god. Okay. You got to get used to the competition that you're facing. When you're going to have that need, you're going to have a guy in Trey Waynes ready to come in and perform. Alright, moving on to number 17 overall pick, and I have the San Diego Chargers selecting Malcolm Brown, the defensive tackle out of Texas. I'm sorry, I stuttered there for a minute. So he plays defensive end in their 3-4 scheme, but I think he could slide in his tackle in this San Diego Chargers defensive front. However, even though they do run a 3-4, they have a need at 3-4 defensive end, kinda. But really, I think he has a very good fit at the nose tackle position because he's a large guy. And even if he doesn't play nose tackle for this team, I think that he could be a good rotational guy with Kendall Reyes, Corey Liuget. I think it'd be a good rotation for him, and even possibly play, defensive end in this scheme. I don't know what to tell you, but listen, they have a lot of needs. The San Diego Chargers team, they're close, but they're not at the same time. It's kind of frustrating because not frustrating. It's kind of like questioning because they do so well. But when you look at the team player by player, they do have a lot of needs. Wide receiver, another wide receiver being one of them. Defensive tackle being one of them. Offensive line still being one of them. Running back still being one of them. The cornerback still being one of them. Cornerback not really. And then strong safety. So they still got needs. Middle linebacker besides their Donald Butler. Manti Te'o, not middle linebacker. Outside linebacker, which is a pass rusher. So this team needs a lot. You can see them possibly go Bud Dupree here. One of the two, I think. This guy has got a lot of foot quickness, Malcolm Brown, and he's excellent against the runs, making him a good fit to play nose tackle in the 3-4 scheme. Okay, with the number 18 overall pick, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Dorial Green-Beckham, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma and Missouri. I say out of Missouri because that's where he played. Oklahoma is technically where he was last year, so he's technically out of Oklahoma, but he played in Missouri. This is the best wide receiver in this draft class, without a doubt. I'm going out there and saying right now, this is definitely an explosive guy. Reminds me a lot of A.J. Green and Calvin Johnson. Yes, Calvin Johnson. He has significant off-the-field issues, but he is getting a ton better. He's a guy who's had off-the-field issues in the past, but is progressing upwards. Had zero off-the-field issues this last coming year. He had a lot of off-field issues at Missouri, but came to Oklahoma. He was still a transfer, so he didn't get to actually play last season, which is why he slid down this draft board a lot, and the off-field issues. But no one heard a thing about Dorial Green-Beckham last year, which is a great thing. For guys that had off-field issues, you hear nothing about him. That's a significant stride forward, and even that, the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid is willing to take guys with personality issues. We know that. With Michael Vick in Philadelphia, it doesn't matter to him. Personality issues matters if the guy's a good player. And Dorial Green-Beckham is a great player. If this guy gets his act together, he's probably going to be one of the top wide receivers in the league. They need that there in Kansas City. I think it's an absolute steal. Huge guy, about 6'6", and has excellent jumping abilities and very thorough with the catch. He is not as consistent as a guy like A.J. Green and Calvin Johnson yet, but I think in about a year or so, when he comes to year, like maybe not, like year one, he's going to be a really good receiver, but like year two, year three, this guy is going to establish himself as an elite wide receiver in the league, and it is possible he'll do it in year one. Great jumping, scores a lot of touchdowns, good red zone target, very fast, very explosive, good on screen passes. This guy's everything you really want. Route running could be more. He needs more route running, but besides that, DJB, absolute beast. I really like him. One of my favorite guys in this draft class. My mock draft that I never made a video about, previously I had him going 8, but then I thought about it to myself and I was like, that does not make sense for me to take a guy 8, even though I know he is my personal number 1 wide receiver. No one is going to take a risk on him that high up. So why would I do it? Trade down and get him. But anyway, Kansas City Chiefs, their wide receivers had no touchdowns last year. That's embarrassing. You need a guy who can score a lot of touchdowns, and Dorial Green-Beckham, he is that guy who scores a lot of touchdowns. Now, Alex Smith isn't necessarily the big down-the-field wide receiver type guy, but he is better than an Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton excels with an A.J. Green. So, with that being said, Dorial Green-Beckham will be an absolute force and exactly what Kansas City Chiefs need. Alright, moving on to the 19th overall pick, and that belongs to the Cleveland Browns. And I have them selecting Eli Harold, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Virginia. This is a guy who played this kind of hybrid role. He would line up in the dirt, or his hand in the dirt, or he'd line up as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Personally, he's a 3-4 outside linebacker, and this is a guy who is explosive off the ball. He has, he's able to get his hands up, power through the guys, and get to the ball carrier. Has excellent effort. One of the most high motor players in this draft class. Hands and feet are a big thing for him. Got great hands, got great feet, quick to the ball, and again, high motor player. He'll drop back into coverage, still be a high motor player. He'll go to the quarterback, still a high motor player. And the Cleveland Browns, they need another edge rusher. They have okay edge rushers. They don't have anyone explosive. Barkevius Mingo hasn't quite panned out so far. And Jabali Sheard is a good edge rusher that I don't think they'll be able to retain in free agency. But he's not an explosive elite edge rusher. Eli Harold could be an explosive elite edge rusher with that just pure effort. Really is. He's one of these guys that might not necessarily get you every single sack that you want, but you want guys to put pressure on the quarterback. He's definitely gonna put pressure on the quarterback. Probably susceptible to double teams because he is huge, but definitely a guy who's gonna make a lot of plays for you. Gonna get you a ton of tackles, from a defensive end / outside linebacker position, at least 10. I probably would say a game. A very, very good guy for your defense. And this is a team that I think, again, this is another one of these teams that's pretty close. Not quite there yet. I think once their quarterback begins to develop, another wide receiver, the defense gets a little better. I think Eli Howard is an excellent pick here, and having 2 first-round picks helps them out a lot. Okay, moving on to number 20 overall pick, and that belongs to Philadelphia Eagles. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment every Philadelphia Eagle fan has been waiting for. With the number 20 overall pick, I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Marcus Mariota, the quarterback out of Oregon. Cue the dislikes. I know it's going to happen. I know everyone's going to comment here, you're an idiot. Why do you have Marcus Mariota going 20? Just prepare yourself for a bit of a rant here. I've touched on it a few times in this video for the people who don't necessarily watch the video all the way through or even watch it halfway through or watch the first top 10 picks. I get a lot of my opinions out in the first top 10 picks because people don't always watch the video all the way through, which is understandable because I can't shut up and I can't make a 15-minute long video. They're hour-long videos, and you might as well just watch a freaking draft analysis on ESPN or something if you wanted to watch it now. Mine videos are longer than if you wanted to go watch Path of the Draft or whatever on ESPN. My videos are longer than those television shows, and I'm gonna give it to you my opinion, straight analysis of every prospect that I have. And again, why am I speaking about this right now? We're talking about Marcus Mariota. And listen, I'm not as down on Mariota as I was down on Clowney last year. That sounds terrible. I don't think Mariota is gonna be as much of a bust as I think Kalani was going to be. Here's the thing with Mariota. Everyone loves him. They think he's the greatest quarterback ever. They think that Marcus Mariota is amazing. You can't look at stats in football and say that's the reason why I need to pick him. At certain positions, you can look at them and be and they stand out. But when you think about it, Oregon's system, I didn't go anywhere farther. Oregon's system, that allows quarterbacks to excel. Think about it. Nick Foles, not this year, last year. 2 interceptions a whole season. 19 or 20 touchdowns. 2 interceptions. Both in a very snowy game in Detroit. I'm sorry, not in Detroit. In Philadelphia. Against Detroit. Think about it. Nick Foles. 2 interceptions. Whole year. A guy that was picked in the 3rd round at Arizona and had struggled before that. A guy that we're talking about right now as being possibly the backup to Mark Sanchez. Think about that. The Oregon system that Chip Kelly runs. Marcus Mariota. 2 picks last year. Oregon system. One of them was horrendous. The one I saw against Florida State. Where the hell he throwing this ball? I don't know. I see Marcus Mariota as being like a Ryan Tannehill. That's who I would say NFL projection. Ryan Tannehill. He has a good short-range ball. He's athletic enough. He's bigger than Tannehill is, though. And he has pretty good intermediate routes. Good on first reads. Second read, doesn't really ever look at his second read ever. He kind of goes back, throw. Okay, How is that so brilliant? You know what you're doing. You're literally calling two plays, and you're switching them every drive. They don't know what two play. They know the two plays, but they don't know when you're gonna run them. But you're doing it so fast that it doesn't matter if it's 2, 3, or 4 plays that you're possibly gonna run. It's just they're going so fast that you gotta figure out which one they're going for, and hopefully guess right. And while Marcus Mariota does have potential, again, Ryan Tannehill is my NFL comparison, and think about it. If you want Ryan Tannehill, where would you take him in this draft? Not number 1 for sure. I'd rather have a lot of these guys in the draft than Ryan Tannehill. And Ryan Tannehill is not a bad quarterback, but the deep ball. Does Marcus Mariota have a deep ball? No, his deep ball is horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And the only reason why I see that he could possibly be moved up a lot in the actual draft is because of the fact that there is no quarterback depth in this draft class. Now, Mariota goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone's going to call me an idiot because he's going to excel at he's really going to excel. He excelled in college at that exact same system. Why in the NFL would he not excel in the exact same system? My point exactly. It's just that if he needs to adjust to an actual NFL offense, it's not going to happen. So I'm telling you right now, if the Philadelphia Eagles take him, he'll look like a franchise quarterback. He'll be really, really, really good. If he goes to the Houston Texans or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Tennessee Titans or the New York Jets, not half as good. I promise you that right now. But not necessarily. He has potential for being a bust, but I see him being like a Ryan Tannehill. That's really what I see him being too. Not a huge bust, but not like an elite franchise quarterback. You know what I mean? He's gonna get you through as your quarterback, probably in my opinion, but not gonna be an elite guy. Definitely not. All right, I'm gonna move on now to the number 21 overall pick, and that belongs to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I have them taking Eddie Goldman, a defensive tackle out of Florida State. Now, most likely, I'm gonna switch him and Malcolm Brown. Just a heads up, that's probably more realistic to switch him and Malcolm Brown, as I meant to do that beforehand. So I'd probably have Eddie Goldman going to the Chargers and Malcolm Brown going to the Bengals. But let's talk about Eddie Goldman, the force from Florida State, a big guy in the middle. I obviously love Florida State, so I watched every single one of their games. Said it a million times, you don't care anymore, do you? But Bengals seem to need this position every year, and the Bengals are going to have such a good team at some point and not win a damn playoff game. Maybe they'll win one, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl because the guy who's their quarterback, Andy Dalton, is the worst playoff or primetime quarterback of all time. Cannot play under pressure. I hate Andy Dalton, and honestly, personally, I'm going to trade his ass and get a draft one. I'd rather have Brian Hoyer in a playoff game than Andy Dalton. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I really don't. I think this is what you don't do. You don't buy in on. I don't like second round quarterbacks. It's not my thing. Now there's exceptions. Derek Carr obviously would have taken him there because I would look at Derek Carr in the draft class and be like, that's probably my franchise quarterback. But don't take quarterbacks that are gonna be pretty good. Like, not necessarily my franchise quarterback, but he'll get me by. Because that he'll get me by is going to get you to the playoffs, and you're going to be like, oh, he's a good enough quarterback to be my franchise quarterback because he's getting me to the playoffs year after year after year. But there's an issue. He's not that guy. So he's not going to get you a playoff win or a multiple playoff wins or a Super Bowl win because he's not that guy. But he's going to get you to playoffs every year because he's good enough. He's not good enough to win playoff games, but he's good enough to get you there. That's Andy Dalton. Plain and simple, Florida State. Eddie Goldman helped solidify that defensive line. It is a pretty good defensive line. Like Geno Atkins, a defensive tackle. One more defensive tackle, Eddie Goldman. More of a run-stopping guy, but he does have explosive hands and a powerful guy. I think it'll help your team out a lot. Moving on to the 22 overall pick. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Landon Collins, the strong safety. Personally, I think he's a strong safety out of Alabama. Can play strong safety or free safety at the next level, but honestly, this is one of the most versatile defenders in this draft class, and the Steelers, they need to get younger on defense, and it starts at the safety position. Troy Polamalu and not this year was Ryan Clark, it was last year was Ryan Clark. I don't know who the other safety was. I really don't know. Mike Mitchell from the Carolina Panthers. But he's now in Steelers. They need to get younger at the safety position regardless. And Landon Collins is easily the best safety prospect. Another one of these positions in this draft class that is very weak. And Landon Collins could possibly shoot up the draft board because there's not really much of anything behind him. But the one issue is Landon Collins is actually a legitimate NFL safety. Pretty good prospect in my opinion. I think this is a perfect range for him to go, like 17 to 25 kind of range. I really think that that's the range you should probably see him go off of, and I think that's where he's going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you should be very happy with the selection here, because I know there's a bunch of idiots out there who have him projected in their top 10, maybe even their top 5. I was one of them at some point, but then I look at the tape and I say, you know what, doesn't make sense at all. Very good pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Very, very good pick. They're going to love this one. Alright, let's move on to the 23 overall pick, and that's the Detroit Lions. You're going to kill me. Yeah, all of you are going to kill me. With the 23 overall pick, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Cameron Erving, the center out of Florida State. He's a center. He's a left tackle converted to center, and he's been very good at center. The Lions are one of these teams I don't see having, like, they don't have a lot of needs. They really don't. I'm very surprised they didn't win multiple playoff games this year. Very, very surprised. I think that they need to buy in fully 100%, sign Ndamukong Suh, and sign Nick Fairley. They definitely have the cap room to sign Ndamukong Suh because he already was receiving $12.1 million a year. And Nick Fairley, on the other hand, I'm not 100% sure if they will indeed be able to re-sign him, but they should be re-sign Ndamukong Suh because they have the cap room to do it. So get him. Get this defensive tackles back. Those guys helped you out a ton. And get a guy, Cameron Erving, that'll help solidify the center of your offensive line. Because Dominic Raiola is done in Detroit. They don't have a center anymore. And I just realized something. I'm an idiot. Travis Swanson out of Arkansas. They drafted him last year to be their center of the future. This pick won't happen. This pick won't happen. You know, I'm not afraid to admit I'm dumb. I'm not afraid to admit I'm an idiot. I was struggling hard with this pick because I don't see the Lions having a lot of needs. I see maybe cornerback as being a need here, but then again, I didn't see a guy that they could take at cornerback here. So I said, oh, Dominic Raiola is done. So let me put in Cameron Erving, but then I thought about it right now, and I was like, no, Travis Swanson. But Travis Swanson can play either guard position as well, so that might possibly be an issue, but whatever. This particular mock draft, I have Detroit Lions selecting Cameron Erving, the center out of Florida State. Once free agency hits, this pick will be a lot easier for me to decide. Michael Bennett out of Ohio State is a guy who I don't think I even have in this draft. No, I don't. I don't have him in this mock draft. But you know what? I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back right here. I'm gonna go back. Let's pretend like that didn't happen. It wasn't Cameron Erving. We're pretending that didn't happen because I'm an idiot. And with 23 overall pick, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Michael Bennett, the defensive lineman out of Ohio State. Yeah, he can play defensive tackle and defensive end in either a 3-4 or a 4-3 scheme. A versatile guy, versatile defender, good against the run, good against the pass. Bigger guy. Played for an Ohio State championship winning team. And I think personally, he actually would fit well. In my personal opinion, I think that they again should and will resign Ndamukong Suh. Should but can't sign Nick Fairley. Michael Bennett's going to replace Nick Fairley, be a good guy there, and I think that fits perfectly. That works out perfectly for Detroit Lions. I'm happy. I finally figured out what I need to do to Detroit Lions, and I'm also just a moron. Anyway, let's move on to the 24 overall pick, and I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Bud Dupree, the defensive end / outside linebacker out of Kentucky. The unfortunate thing with him is he played at Kentucky and didn't get to show off how good in coverage he was and as good as a defensive end as he was. Probably one of the most solid, probably the most well-rounded defensive end / outside linebacker position in this draft. Well-rounded meaning he can play defensive end and he can play outside linebacker. I think that the Arizona Cardinals have a very good defense, and for some reason they don't even have the best of pass rushers. They have Calais Campbell, that's interior pass rush, and then the outside edges. Alex Okafor was very, very good for them last year, the second-year guy out of Texas. But get another guy, get Bud Dupree, and this is a really good team. I don't think they go running back whatsoever. Andre Ellington, they talk about him a lot. They're very high on him. He did get hurt a lot this year, which I do think was a possibility with him, as he had a smaller frame. He's not going to take as much abuse. But Bud Dupree, absolute beast here. You gotta like him a lot. He's got a ton of effort. He'll chase down the ball. If he's 50 yards behind the guy, he's still gonna run after him full speed trying to catch him. He's a good effort player. I really do like him a lot at Kentucky, and I think that if the Cardinals are lucky enough to get him at 24, they should be very, very happy about it, because personally, I don't think they're going to be able to in my next mock draft. They probably won't be able to get him at 24, but for this particular one, they get a steal at him at 24, and they might even move up to get him, because they're not a team with a lot of needs. Quarterback is one of them. They're probably not going to get their quarterback in this draft class unless they go way down lower in second or third round with Brett Hundley or a Bryce Petty out of Baylor. But with that being said, they do have a big contract in Carson Palmer, which is really dumb. They were so one game off. They waited one more week to sign Carson Palmer. They wouldn't have done it. Alright, let's move on to the 25 overall pick, and I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Lyle Collins, the offensive tackle out of LSU. They need a left tackle with, oh my god, Byron Bell is awful. Really, really, really is a right tackle. He's a big guy. I don't know what they were even thinking. But then they've got whoever they played at right tackle. I think it was, oh my god, I can't even remember. I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, I forgot. But they had Andrew Norvell at guard, out of Ohio State, and they had a couple other, Trey Turner from LSU at the other guard position, Ryan Khalil at center, a good force center. Right tackle was, he was pretty good towards the end. I don't remember his name, to be completely fair with you. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I'm an idiot. It is 2:59 a.m. when I'm recording this, and I can't remember the right tackle of the Carolina Panthers' name. So just excuse me on that one. But Lyle Collins can play left tackle, and I think that'll give this offensive line much needed help. They got very lucky that Andre Norwell and that right tackle, whose name is not known, played very well for them, and the running game is the big thing with the Carolina Panthers. Their run game means everything to them, because they don't have the wide receivers that the other teams do. Cam Newton can run, and Greg Olsen and Kelvin Benjamin both can catch the ball. Besides that, they're really bad, the other guys. Alright, let's move on to Dallas Cowboys at 20. No, let's not. Let's move on to the 26th overall pick, and that it belongs to the Baltimore Ravens. And I have them selecting Shaq Thompson, the linebacker out of Washington. A very versatile defender. Can fit pretty much everywhere here. The Ravens need depth at the cornerback position, but they need depth at the top end starters. They have Jimmy Smith and Ladarius Webb, two good starters who had a ton of injuries. So many injuries in the secondary, which kind of killed us in the end. But Shaq Thompson is a guy who... Dumerville is a situational pass rusher. Just think about that for a minute. Dumerville is a situational pass rusher. When Dumerville isn't in the game, they need another linebacker besides Terrell Suggs. And Shaq Thompson is very versatile, and pretty much I was going to use some strategy. And my strategy, if I was a Baltimore Ravens general manager, would be to take the best player available. This team is very, very good, very well rounded. I watched them later in the year. I really did enjoy watching them, and the offense exploded last year. I was very happy that Joe Flacco, if only he could play like that in the regular season, we would win the Super Bowl every year. Goddamn Joe Flacco. Anyway, Shaq Thompson, versatile defender, very raw. That's pretty much what's going to kill him. He's very raw. He was even a running back at Washington last year, so I don't know what you're going to do with him. But the Ravens will find a way to do something with him, and I definitely think at that other outside linebacker position, is a position of need, and he might even be able to kick in interior, like a middle linebacker, when Darryl Smith does indeed retire. Eventually he will, and C.J. Mosley takes over full-time as the brightest young defender, in my opinion, in the league. Let's move on to the 27th overall pick, trying to get this done before 3 a.m. Probably won't, because I'm an idiot. But let's move on to the 27th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys, and I have them selecting P.J. Williams, a cornerback out of Florida State. The Dallas Cowboys need secondary help a lot. Their defense is not good. They still need to work on defense and offense. Played excellent because they have an excellent line, because they invested a lot of picks in that line. What I say goes, people. Offensive line wins you championships, wins you football games, gets you playoff appearances. They turned DeMarco Murray and Tony Romo into an elite combination in that backfield just by adding another offensive lineman. For all of you that wanted Johnny Manziel, You wanted to take a backup quarterback in the first round. I don't know what in the hell possessed anyone to think that was going to happen. I don't have any clue why you would think that. Tony Romo's a $100 million quarterback. Why the hell would you draft a first-round quarterback? Doesn't make any sense at all. But thank God they didn't do that. And they took Zach Martin, and they changed this entire team. Now you need to work on the defensive side of the ball, which is still pretty bad. And P.J. Williams is a shut-down corner for Florida State. Once you get past Trey Waynes, Marcus Peters, P.J. Williams, and Ronald Darby, and, damn it, the guy at what the hell's his name? Wake Forest. Kevin Johnson, I believe is his name. Once you get past those guys, this cornerback class is weak as hell. So you gotta get your cornerback now. You really do. And P.J. Williams is a great cornerback. I'm a little biased on this one, to be honest. Yeah, I watched him. He played really good for Florida State. That's all I gotta say. He's played really good for Florida State. Alright, let's move on. 28 overall pick, Denver Broncos. And I have them selecting Benardrick McKinney, the inside linebacker out of Mississippi State. Absolute steal here. This position is brutally undervalued in the draft. It always is. This is a top 10 talent. Got him at 28. And the one thing I see missing from the Denver Broncos defense is interior and inside linebacker. Outside linebacker Von Miller, absolute beast. Defensive line, pretty good. Secondary, pretty good. Like outside linebackers running around, Danny Trevathan, yeah, pretty good. Brandon Marshall, pretty good. Like, not really good, but he's okay. Inside, nothing. Benardrick McKinney, let's go. Let's get this guy. One of the best, I'm sorry, not one of the best. He's the best inside linebacker in college football. A force out there, very athletic, very strong. Great pick for the Broncos here if they get him. Absolute steal. Alright, let's move on to the 29th overall pick. And that belongs to the Indianapolis Colts. And I have them selecting Melvin Gordon, the running back out of Wisconsin. They need to accept it. They made a mistake trading for Trent Richardson. I have no idea how a guy goes from as good as he was on Cleveland to as bad as he's been on Indianapolis. I just don't understand. Clearly Cleveland knew. Which, wow. Cleveland made a great trade. Cleveland did something amazing in management. It's a miracle. They'd never do anything good. It's the Cleveland Browns. It's Cleveland. But, obviously they knew something, because he was extremely productive. I was surprised they traded him. I was like, what the hell are they trading him for? Because Indianapolis is just jack shit. So, obviously it was a good trade. But now the Indianapolis Colts are going to have to spend another first-round pick on a running back any time where first-round running backs just don't happen. But Melvin Gordon definitely is a really good running back. He needs to also work on the defense. But I think at this point, I think the best guy that you should take here is Melvin Gordon. I have no idea what I'm doing. Should have been the Heisman Trophy winner, in my opinion. To be completely honest with you, I think he should have been the Heisman winner. A very productive running back at Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a long line of good running backs, so for Melvin Gordon to probably be the best, he owned the FBS single game rushing record for about 5 days until Samaje Perine beat it. But anyway, very, very good running back. Everyone knows who Melvin Gordon is, one of the Heisman finalists. I thought he should have won it. Let's move on. With the 30th overall pick, I have the Green Bay Packers selecting Nate Orchard, the defensive end out of Utah. A very productive edge rusher out of Utah. He's not that explosive, but he's very, very powerful. Relentless to the quarterback, and got a ton of sacks. Racked up a ton of sacks, a ton of tackles. High motor player. Another high motor player. These guys have a lot of high motor players in this draft. And just so much production, so much power is going to force me to have him go here in the first round, even though I wish that he did have more speed. He is not necessarily the most explosive athlete, but possibly see him as being an interior 3-4 defensive end, and really helping from there, where his speed isn't necessarily needed as much, but the power that he does possess would fit this team by defense as an interior defensive end. I think that would help them out a lot here. I really do. I think it's an easy pick for them. Nate Orchard out of Utah. Alright, with the 31st overall pick, this is also going to reveal my Super Bowl pick. With the 31st overall pick, I have the New England Patriots selecting Devin Smith, wide receiver out of Ohio State University. Alright, Devin Smith is a guy that you probably haven't heard of as of now. What am I doing? I'm stuck. No, load. Please load. I'm sorry. Devin Smith is a guy you probably haven't heard about yet. And he has pretty good size, but he has great speed. He reminds you a lot of a Mike Wallace type guy. He's a vertical threat. And the New England Patriots, they need a wide receiver, in my honest opinion. A vertical wide receiver. They have guys that kind of go inside, but then the guy goes this way. So to make it a lot more confusing for teams, even though they don't need to make anything even more confusing, but they have a lot of talent on that team. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think it's going to be a really hard-fought Super Bowl. And this guy's a very high-effort guy, got great tracking abilities. He finds that extra level, and he does need some help on his route running. A lot of guys in college do need, but he's explosive out of the break, and he always puts effort into it. Needs to cut down on his drops a little bit. That has been an issue for him, but he then makes, of course, the amazing catches. A lot like Kelvin Benjamin, who just makes all right, here's the ball, I got it, bang, to the ground. Ball's over there, I got it, catches it. That's kind of the same thing with Devin Smith here. And a very raw player, not very raw, but he's pretty raw. But he has a ton of upside, and with good coaching, which they do have in New England, unfortunately, I have to say, Bill Belichick, he actually is a good coach. I think this guy will make a good impact on this team. Alright, let's move on to the final pick in the first round, and that belongs to, I think, personally, is going to win Super Bowl 49. And that is the Seattle Seahawks. And I have them selecting Devin Funchess, the wide receiver / tight end out of Michigan. I think the only reason why I have him going wide receiver / tight end is because I think that the Seattle Seahawks may play him at actually both. As a tight end, he would draw comparisons to probably Martellus Bennett, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski. Nah, he's not Rob Gronkowski. Martellus Bennett and Jimmy Graham. He draw comparisons to tight end there. As a wide receiver, he's just a really, really big wide receiver. I think with a league that's so driven towards this tight end being explosive position, I think that why not? Why not try him at tight end? Why not? He could be a really good tight end. And they need both. They really do. They don't have a wide receiver. Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse, they get the job done. To be honest, they do get the job done. But at tight end, they need a tight end, an explosive tight end. And I think either way, Devin Funchess works out well for the Seattle Seahawks team. Alright, that concludes my third 2015 NFL mock draft. I'm sorry the end of this video is a little bit rushed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Having had some issues getting this video out, I just wanted to get this video out to you guys. But I just want to say once again, thank you for all the recent support on the videos. It makes me want to do the videos more. It is kind of what the hell is my hair doing? It is kind of frustrating sometimes when you put in a lot of effort on videos and put in hour-long videos. My videos don't take 30 seconds for me to sit down and make. They take, obviously, I'm sorry, this is pissing me off. Okay, I'm sorry. They obviously don't take 15 to 20 minutes to make. I sit down and they take a lot longer to make than you think. Probably about a 2-hour process for an hour-long video. And for them to get not that many views and not help me out very much, usually makes me just kind of go, why am I going to do this? But all recent support has helped me a lot. I know it's not necessarily the biggest views in the world, but to me it means a lot, and I thank you guys for that. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what your opinions are on this draft class, who you'd like to see your team possibly pick, and I might take your input in, and it helps a lot. And if you're a fan of teams that I necessarily have, you think failed to recognize, I'm gonna try to say one team per video, even though might not necessarily need help on picks. But I'm gonna say one team in particular every video from now on that I would like fans of that team to give me more information about. In this particular video, I want San Diego Charger fans down below to leave me a comment on what they think that their team should do with that pick. I do think I know what they need to do there, but I'd like to see what the Chargers fans have to think about small market teams, and also a team probably like the Miami Dolphins. I don't know. Just leave your comments down below. Hit subscribe if you're new. Like this video. My name is Kyle, and I'm out.